A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome back to films I should have talked about years ago. And so now, what we're going to do is we're going to cap off the new Planet of the Apes film series. But this, of course, was not just any Planet of the Apes series, but this is in fact the one that so far serves as the ending to the franchise, as is currently established. Here we have ourselves War for the Planet of the Apes. This is something, actually the whole series itself was something that I definitely should have topped on. And I really should have talked on it because, simply put, we actually have a lot of new material that is going to come around. And for what is planned for the future of the Planet of the Apes film series, is certainly going to be pretty exciting to see when it does come around, of course. But this is, of course, where the adventures of Caesar, his army of apes, and the many conflicts with humanity still go at it very strong. This is, of course, where it happens to be the highest concentration possible. Because apart from a rise in terms of an ape rebellion, and then a dawn of a conflict between apes and humans in a dystopian world, we have ourselves the war itself that first begins with the apes and the humans simply having their own ways, their own plans for domination of Earth as is. The planet itself is, simply put, under peril by any means. And the humans have their own way to potentially put the apes themselves in their own place, while the apes themselves have their own series of attacks. But first, what happens is that the likes of Caesar, Maurice, and the other apes each form their own sort of agreement. Eventually, it boils down to one decision. They must leave the woods and make their way over to another location. This location, of course, is pretty far away from the woods. It's settled high up in the mountaintops, covered in snow and ice, very cold, but it will in fact serve as the new resting place for the apes to settle on for a while, to say the least, until they can find some way of eventually reaching for their own freedom. Of course, there are a lot of challenges to overcome before they do so, including one and only Woody Harrelson. He plays a colonel of a militia group that the humans have settled as a way to create some sort of fighting, so this way that the apes cannot complete their mission. And this exact sort of conflict that happens between the different races are, simply put, exhausting and destructive. Humans get killed, apes get killed, but then eventually there comes a little girl who unfortunately is unable to speak. She cannot find her own family. And Maurice himself actually comes across her, and while she seems scared at first, it seems likely that she's going to have some sort of help as a way to get back to her family. Meanwhile, Caesar himself actually departs from the group that is making their way over to the mountains as a way to tend to some sort of personal matter. And this personal matter happens to be where he would eventually meet up with the colonel himself. In a slave camp. That's right. A camp was actually established, and a lot of apes had actually been captured and taken there to work. And the colonel himself is actually overseeing all sorts of operations take place within this exact confine. There's a lot of stuff that happens here, and a lot of gruesome and crazy things that could possibly happen to the apes by any means. Apes are dying left and right. Caesar eventually manages to find his own inner strength and manages to just struggle against the ensuing action. The humans prepare to make one final blow, but when they do, the apes have their own trick up their sleeve. The complex itself goes boom completely, which is just unbelievable to say the least. After all that's been said, all that's been done, the Ape Rebellion truly has rebelled for the last time, because the apes themselves eventually make their way to the new location, which is settled out in a nice area in the mountains. It's a nice warm day out there, and by the end of the movie, it truly is a sign that the apes themselves have finally found freedom, away from the humanity, and hopefully away from any further conflict, any sort of destruction towards their own race is possibly prevented by this point. But when it comes to the series itself, I sure have made some pretty good work of the whole series itself. Rise of the Planet of the Apes has its own scoring of 8.0, and I haven't really given a good scoring for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, so I'll just simply stick with an 8.3 out of 10.1, and then an 8.1 out of 10.1 for War for the Planet of the Apes. War for the Planet of the Apes currently holds the final spot, the latest release ever made for the franchise in general. There actually were some announcements, however, that a new sequel is currently in the works, being finished up, but Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is going to be the next installment in this franchise. It may potentially be the last that'll ever have happened so far. But anytime, anywhere, we could potentially find news that another sequel might settle into place. So of course, just to know that the series is going really strong and is still doing very well, Planet of the Apes is still going to be around for a long, long time. So with that in mind, that concludes my talks of this whole Planet of the Apes stuff. This trilogy was one of a kind when I first got the chance to see it. And being that I had the chance to talk about all three of these films now, hopefully I don't have to do much with it now. But coming soon, another bonus episode. This time for another more recent installment that showed up in 2022. So if you want to see more, go down on my channel, then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.